is the tallest spire on a church in medieval Europe. 123 metres, 404 feet up in the air. It's absolutely stunning. After Salisbury, and we'll do our lunch stop after the cathedral visit. We're heading out to Stonehenge, arguably our finest prehistoric monument, built 5,050 to 3,600 years ago by a prehistoric farming community whose purpose is an absolute mystery to us. No one knows why it was done. You do a circuit around the stone setting. We take a coach up to the site. It's too far to walk. It's a mile and a half. So we pick up transportation and we take transportation back from the coach park. It is a brand new visitor experience, and this started on the 18th of December on our travels. Okay, all good?
All good.
Lovely. Haven't been out this way before. This takes us through Belgravia. These are fabulous houses built in the 1850s. Architect for them was Thomas Cubitt, and they're built on an estate owned by one landowner, the Duke of Westminster. When they were built in the 1850s, they're still owned by the incumbent Duke of Westminster, and we're looking at properties here that sell for tens of millions of pounds. And the great joy of these houses for him is that they're fixed term leases. So when the lease expires, the property returns to the incumbent Duke and they sell it again. Yes, so you get on the internet and you punch in the Duke of Westminster, you'll see he has a real estate value, because he reinvests worldwide in property, of £6 to £7 billion. And it's all based on the back of the housing stock in this area, which is right behind Buckingham Palace. So the Queen is your neighbour. That might reflect the house prices. This is one of the most exclusive residential districts in the capital. The houses are built of brick with cream-coloured stucco exterior, and he insists on the colour of the paint to maintain the harmony of his estate. Few individual cannot afford to buy them nowadays. So you tend to see a lot of flags for the embassy buildings. There's the German one there, Portuguese on the corner. So these high commissions or embassies. But all you have to do is look at the cars. I just look at the cars, yeah. You know, sort of Ferraris, Aston Martins, Lamborghinis. You know, you're slumming it in a BMW 5 Series or Mercedes Benz around here. You don't see too many Ford Focuses. Alright. For the defeat of Napoleon. Real bloodbath. The battlefield is 40,000 dead French, 15,000 dead British, 7,000 dead Prussians. To be honest, had Blucher not re-engaged with his Prussian forces, I don't think we would have carried the day, but the Duke of Wellington was loath to recognise that. first cathedral. I can't show you, sadly it hasn't survived, but it's on the hilltop we'll see as we come out of Salisbury. Basically the Norman conquest was occurred because that last but one Anglo-Saxon King Edward, the founder of Westminster Abbey, was forced into exile very briefly on the continent overseas in France during the reign of the stronger Danish Viking leaders who invaded us and occupied the northern part of the country. Whilst he's there in exile, he decides to promise the crown to William, who he's not related to, but he has no children to leave the crown to himself, so he decides to offer it to a foreign leader who he actually quite liked. Yeah, unfortunately his Whitmore council didn't. When he comes back from his exile, restoring the monarchy, his council turn to him and say, look, we don't want a foreign leader, we want one of our own. And it basically puts us on a course for war as they nominate his brother-in-law, Harold. The battle was fought at a place called Hastings in 1066, and it's a battle in which you got for evenly matched armies. They're both 12 to 15,000 in strength, but our troops, and they were known as housecarls, would fight on foot with a battle axe and a shield, and you basically rode the horse to the battlefield. You corralled the horse in a corner. Having dismounted, you stood up, you formed a shield wall and fought with a fierce axe on foot. William had the advantage not only of foot soldiers, but he had horseback knights too, but unable to penetrate that impenetrable shield wall all day long, he decides to cheat. And so he spreads rumours to his ranks that he's fallen with their blood up, you know, thinking as they see those horseback knights retreating down the hill, they've won the day, our foot soldiers pursue them. William then raises his helmet, I'm alive! Listen, and the horseback knights turn around, and you recreate this battle scene, and you put a foot soldier against a horseback knight. Guys, there's no contest. The horseback knight wins this one every day. Gamely they regain the high ground to protect Harold, but he's cut down at close quarters, and William so moved that he builds an entire abbey on the site in Battle, Sussex. It's not actually Hastings itself, it's near Hastings. But he's now got a dilemma. He's got a country that social historians have estimated has a populace of 1.5 million people. How do you go about subduing the nation? You starve the people into submission. You crush pockets of resistance. But then he gives us two other things. Yeah, castles. Yeah, best part of 1,000 castles the Normans would introduce. But of course you can then get not only their subjugation by the burning of castle, you get their kind of religious following if you give them churches as well. Yeah, it's the double whammy. Yeah, I built a castle to show I subdued you, and now I'm going to build you a church, which is a great indication that God was on our side. And he builds these two buildings side by side on the top of this hill at two different levels of the terraced hilltop. Yeah, the castle is to the top, the cathedral is in the lower section, so the troops and soldiers would be looking down on the cathedral. However, it's not a good marriage. The two parties wouldn't see eye to eye all the time, and added to that, it is a hilltop, a natural hilltop, so it's dry. There's not much in the way of water, so it's quite inhospitable, exposed. They decide to move it. Only where do we move the church to? Well, the bishop decides to appoint an archer, and the archer's going to fire off an arrow, and where that arrow lands, he'll build a new cathedral, and that's the cathedral you're going to be looking at. Now, as luck would have it, as he pulls back the strings of his bow and it sets off into the distance, a deer wanders by, and the deer takes the arrow in its rump, and the deer goes scampering off down into the valley, where it promptly dies. And as luck would have it, it dies in the very area where all that water from the local rivers, and there are 5 of them, had been pushing down all this gravel into a gravel basin, which is soaked with water. And believe it or not, that's the perfect platform on which to build the church. Now, the only way I can think of explaining this to you is that if you were on a beach and the tide flows in and the water's at your feet and you're stood in the sand, it is rock hard. Once the water flows out, you sink in the sand. And that is exactly the process going on here. The presence of the water table drenching this stone makes it a very hard foundation. And I can assure you they check this on a daily basis, because they built the church on 4 feet deep foundations. I'll do my best to show you if I can, because they won't let us play with the mechanics of showing you how this all works. But we'll go and have a look. I'll at least show you the spot where the dipstick, if you like, is. It's like checking the oil in your car engine every day. Yeah? If they get too much water, as we have done over the winter with the heavy floods, then they've emptied sluice cases to reduce the water table. Okay? And that keeps this church up. But of course, the church, when it's built from a Gilmark stone locally quarried, is built in one single architectural style, early English Gothic, 1220, 1258. This in itself is very unusual. Yeah? Most churches built over so many generations, you see contrasting styles. But it's one style, no spire. The spire doesn't surface till around 1310, 1320, when they decide to add it on top. 404 feet up in the air, 123 metres, the tallest spire on a medieval church in Western Europe. Only Ulm is taller, and that is a modern day church. And it inclines slightly over to one side. It's not perfectly straight, but with 6,500 tons of weight added to a building.
Now here you'll see this is a brand new font. It's put here for the 750th anniversary of the opening of the church. This was put here in 2008, but it is a full body immersion font. And it's all the threes. That's the easy way to remember it. It's Now we are underneath the spire here. You can actually judge how far that spire inclines, and it goes over in this direction. And on one side it's 27.5 inches, on the other 17.5 inches approximately. So it's all over this way. You know by the outline here in the floor, concerned about where the spire stood, what they would do is hang from the weather vane door, about 10 metres, 30 feet from the top, a plumb line. Yeah, so I lift that up, you've got oil underneath and it stops the plumb line moving, and of course it gives you the location then for the door, you can see there. This is where you come out to do remedial work at the top. Alright? So that's where that is, and from it of course you're able to determine that that's where the spire is. However, as you can see, 1737, they took the corner points of these columns, door necks, of course, and that distance there between the two marks, you see, yes, it's these perfect marble black columns here that are suffering the structural stress. If you were to look at heads, at the base of any of those columns you look up, you'll see how much they curve. Cathedral authorities can be quite sensitive unless I find that they understand. Alright? I gather from this hall. There, the sponge, yeah, and you see the marks here. The water table. So they basically, they'll put the stick down there and the sponge simply prevents the stick disappearing altogether. Alright, don't be surprised if someone tells you that's the stick, it's the plumb line that tells you the water table. And the sponge just stops it falling. Yeah? And that's where it goes. They won't let me lift the stone. Yeah? Alright? Okay, come on. Yeah.
Stop there for I didn't hear. I mean, you didn't really.
Coming along, praying for miracles to occur, you dip your elbow, your foot, your knee, whatever it was troubling you, and prayed. It's the only part of the shrine that survived the period of Reformation under Henry VIII and the destruction of the saints' shrines. We don't know for certain that's what we think that is. And this is as close as you're going to get to the real boundary. That's Catholic grave,
One of the unexpected.
circling the crown, head of there. Gentlemen behind seating Magna Carta, Michael the first burial here within the church. Right, and unusual. Not a this stone top still shows signs of the old story by all accounts at one point.
Can't see the hill, look, I picked it out as it's through the houses on the right, just over there. So there's the top tier that the castle stood, the lower tier that the cathedral stood. And if I took you up there today, you still got this stone outline in the floor of the original castle and cathedral. There's the hilltop that our archer shot that arrow from. The Stonehenge visit, we have a brand new, as I said earlier, when we left London, visitor centre here. As you look at the visitor centre, when we arrive, the right hand side contains the bathrooms, the left hand side has the coffee bar. My recommendation is you come straight up to the site, you do the site visit, and then on your way back you think in terms of souvenirs, refreshments. Yeah, don't go disappearing, just have lunch. Yeah, straight up to the site, round the stone setting, and then see what time you've got left. But it's one of our finest, if not the finest, prehistoric structure we have in this country, built in a series of phases by a farming community that have no name attached to themselves, who would have set about deforesting a very heavily wooded willow hazel landscape using fossilised sea sponges or flint from the chalk habitat. Chalk is shells of sea creatures forming 65 to 100 million years ago, dumped at the base of the sea, brought up off the floor as Africa moved up into the European continent, and the farmers here harvested that flint to make tools to remove the trees so they could grow crops, and they still grow crops here today, as you can see, and raise livestock in the clearings. So picture them being farmers who deforested so they could make a living. Yeah, then they set about burying their dead. Wrapped around Stonehenge there are over 500 burial mounds. They come in different shapes and sizes. There are plates, dishes, bells, domes, you name it, they have it. The oldest predating work at the site show a communal burial practice. Anything up to 50 human skeletal remains in one spot. The new modern ones, by a modern one I mean one going back 4,000 years, is where you start to see one skeleton, rich grave goods, semi-precious jewels, even solid gold artifacts. Excavated, of course, as some of the finds found their way here at the visitor centre. Work at the site is actually the last thing that they do, and they set about by digging a circular ditch, taking fossilised antlers holes to dig up the ditch, putting the contents inside to form a 6 foot, 2 metre high wall, 330 feet or 110 metres in diameter. To the northeast, which is over there, straight ahead on our right hand side, the approach road, in rough alignment with the summer solstice, where the sun comes up over the horizon on the longest day of the year, the 21st of June, leading many to suggest this has something to do with the sun. Could it have been a clock, working from the inside that was helping the farmers to determine when to sow and harvest their crops? But in phase 1, 5,050, 4,900 years ago, no stones. The stones start to arrive 4,300 years ago. About 80 of them were brought from Wales. They weigh 5 tons apiece, standing a bit taller than we do, and they're the blue stones. Why are they called blue stones? Because if I took you to Wales, we took one, broke it in half, poured water over it, it would go blue. And they must have thought, wow, that stone goes blue. Why don't we move it 150 miles? Yes? Probably round the coastline on some sort of wooden structure dragged over land, and then those 80 stones are stood up to form 2 circles of standing stones within the circular ditch and wall. Now,
Okay.
Okay, inside. 1, 2. You need to group travel.
When you do the circuit, get down by the heel stone and you're on that.
Sometimes it's more interesting to listen to that. Wala pa lang number, di ba? Wala pa nakalagay.
Not quite. Yeah, the whole beholder. Yeah, she said, well, the architecture was so beautiful. You know, when I saw it, it was 19. Today, I would.
Ja, aber wir drei laufen dann.